Hello everyone and welcome to the Fantasy Survival Guide. My name is Mage and today we're discussing the Billhook. This is a fantastic weapon. It is incredibly long, it's a polearm, it can do so much damage. I have fought with this particular one so many times and 9 times out of 10 it will win against whatever it is pitted against. Now, one of the things I really talk about is sort of the living fantasy style of content. What is this sort of alternate history to a place that never existed? Really similar concept to that is living anachronism. One of my favorite places to hang out in the online ether is the Living Anachronism Discord. There's a whole discussion in the server about being a fantasy adventurer, and one of the things that really comes up is how a fantasy adventurer would use a weapon like a polearm. How would they travel with it? How would they fight? A lot of the benefits a polearm has are actually to its detriment in the case of a fantasy adventurer. Its long length is great for attacking opponents at a distance, but it's troublesome to put on a pack animal or take through the woods. Its various hooks up here can get snagged and caught on any sort of limb traveling through a dense forest. If you're a fantasy adventurer like Strider or any sort of ranger or any sort of person traveling on the road, there's so many issues. Of course, it really depends on what type of adventure you are. In this case, it works out pretty good for me. Hiking along a creek in this big open area, it makes a fantastic walking stick. It's great for having balance, especially this sort of wet, gnarled terrain. Crossing a creek like this is also a fantastic one, as I just demonstrated right there. It allows a third point of contact on the ground to allow you to keep your balance, especially when crossing this difficult terrain. I don't think I could have done that without having a walking stick of some sort. And if you're already traveling with a long stick, why not choose a polearm, Halberd, Billhook, or whatever? The other point to that is if you are using a walking stick and you come across a point where you can't take the walking stick, you can just throw the stick away. This is an expensive piece of kit that I would not really recommend just chucking into the woods at the slightest inconvenience. Now, this works great if you're traveling along open roads, open fields, creeks, beds, any sort of thing like that. If you're a high honor D&D party with high report in the kingdom, I wouldn't see any issue of traveling with these. It'd be easy enough, traveling through easy terrain, you don't have to hide. However, if you're on an adventure like Lord of the Rings, or any sort of really adventure that has you traveling through difficult terrain, or long distances through heavy brush, a polearm probably isn't the best, and that's kind of what I want to talk about. Now, if I've spent so much time saying the halberd sucks, and I've also said the halberd's great, what's the point of this video? Well, the whole video might be a moot point. You might say to yourself, yeah, a big stick is going to have trouble going through some deep woods. Obviously, duh. This sort of video is sort of trying to figure out, well, if you had to take this thing, if you had to travel through deep brush carrying a large polearm, how would you do it? What would you do? And would it be better than just trying to choose something else? There's some woods here. I'm going to walk through it and see what happens. This is I'd say a medium level difficulty brush. Not terribly difficult. No, I don't see any thorns, any bush, lots of poison ivy, but I am completely covered and I got bug spray on. Onwards. So, I don't know if you can see me right now. That was actually kind of easy. I'm keeping on walking now. I'm flipping the Billhook different ways around, but it actually seems to be working. And I'm actually on the other end of the tree line, about 25, 30 feet away. Oh, it got stuck. It actually got stuck. There it is. You got wedged between a tree and the ground. But yeah. That was pretty easy. That was, I would say, high difficult terrain, not extreme, but that was roughly difficult of me getting scratched, hit. But honestly, my gambeson and my armor kind of protected me. Nice. This one's a bit more difficult. I do see a little bit more brambles. And there's a bunch of tree roots, branches, vines, and the whole sort. Now, I'm not being stupid. I'm not destroying everything like a dummy. I'm being respectful. It's a log. I got snagged by a couple thorns. Got poked and pricked, I think by milkweed. But I made it through. The halberd made it through. Yeah, I think it works. Now, the next question is, can you fight with it in the woods? And that's a question that might be very difficult. With a weapon like a greatsword, I don't think so. Sure, it may chop through some of the lighter brush, but there's also the fact that there's trees. Anything bigger than 3 to 4 inches, it's going to be lodged in. And a lot of things with the greatsword is keeping the momentum going, keeping the spinning going, and it's just not going to work in the woods like this. It's just going to be feasible. However, in the case of weapons like this, out of all of the selection of weapons made for war in the medieval period, this is probably going to be pretty okay. Any of the spear type weapons. The reason this is good is because of the linear action that you can do. For the most part, you're probably going to be fighting in a linear action, not really side to side. This will probably do pretty good in it. This is probably the thickest bunch of thick branches. Can I fight in here? Now that I'm in this clearing, I can go back and forth. There's definitely some branches behind me that's going to have some issues. Going through here, this branch might actually help me, because if they have a slashing weapon like a sword, this is going to block this, where I can freely poke through, maybe knock their blade into it and get them through. So this is kind of like a nice shield right now, since I have the thrusting weapon. If I try doing chops, I can do it this way, but I can't really do it either side to side. And if I back up and try the other way, I can't really do multiple opponents. I think that's a big drawback, is if you're fighting multiple opponents, this would be pretty bad, because you can't really reposition that fast. The way I'm figuring this is kind of like a puzzle of you kind of have to figure out what's the best way to place your weapon, how to get your weapon from position to position. Yeah, I think this works if you primarily focus on thrusting. Having this long is, having issues. I can't reposition as fast. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm currently choking up on the blade right now to position it and then extending it out. And when I need to move it, I put it back in and then move it. That's fascinating. That's really cool. Now, after all that, yes, this is a stupid video. I am just a guy dressing up, walking in the woods with a big stick. However, this is an interesting topic of what kind of weapons could a fantasy adventurer use if they're traveling through the deep woods. And there's so many difficult terrain that might cause an issue, whether that's climbing up a mountain, going through difficult terrain like this, traveling a desert. And for all of that, I think a billhook or any polearm this size is gonna be okay. It works well enough. You can go through the woods, you can decently fight with it if you're doing mostly linear or doing basic chopping actions. It works, and you wouldn't have any more issues than you would having any other weapon. Even having a longsword like this, having cuts might not work in the deep woods. You'd have to rely more on thrust, which this will probably be better on. That also means having a rapier in the woods might actually be a better weapon than a longsword. That's an interesting discussion.